Over the years, you've heard me ask wealth manager Warren Ingram the big questions. How do we invest wisely? How do we protect our family's future? All those conversations, that entire library of financial expertise is now available as a podcast. Straightforward advice to help you build your wealth on demand. Just search for Warren Ingram's Personal Finance wherever you get your podcasts.
You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
8 minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang, happy Monday. Welcome to the Clement Manyathela Show. It's great to have you with us here on 702. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and I hope that you're going to have a wonderful week ahead. Hello. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can go to the 702 YouTube page if you want to watch and listen to the show right at the same time. Here's a question. Is former President Jacob Zuma supporting the oppression of Western Sahara by Morocco for financial gains? Does the MK party believe that Western Sahara should be a Bantustan? These are the questions that some people are asking themselves after the former president went to Rabat last week in Morocco, met with the Moroccan foreign minister, and announced his party's official recognition of Morocco's sovereignty over Western Sahara. And I wonder what your thoughts are on this one, given that Jacob Zuma was part of the African National Congress, which supported the self-determination of Western Sahara. Your thoughts on that, please, on 011-883-0702. The Eswatini government, though, has also accepted individuals classified as violent criminals from the U.S. as part of a third country deportation deal. So the U.S. has sent out these prisoners to countries like Eswatini, right? This is a group of men originally from countries like Vietnam, Jamaica, Cuba, Yemen, and they were deported from the U.S. to Eswatini. These are people who were convicted of serious offenses, including murder, aggravated assault, gang-related crimes, and child rape. Now, Eswatini has to now facilitate the deportation of these people who are coming from America to their own countries. But what happens when their own countries say, we don't want those people here? Are they going to be stuck with Eswatini? I spoke to the spokesperson of the Eswatini government. I'll play you that interview. It appears they don't really have all the information. They don't know what would happen if the countries that they're supposed to send these criminals to say, we don't want them. They don't know what they're going to do because the U.S. has not done so. The U.S. is using them to facilitate for the return of these criminals as they're being deported to their own country. So what's the plan there? What's in it really for Eswatini? You'll find out when I play that conversation with the spokesperson of the Eswatini government during the open line before we wrap up at 10.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Baby, Mora, man. Flores here from the Western Cape. Jacob Zuma is definitely looking for funding, man, and now he is supporting Morocco. Yeah, I thought that this guy went to support Banyana with his flag, just to be surprised to see that he end up speaking to the foreign ministry of Morocco. So absolutely, this is all about money with the upcoming 2029 national elections. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's really the question a lot of us have. It just doesn't make sense, really, how the former president of the MK party has moved here. So does the MK party believe that the Western Sahara should be a Bantustan? So here's some context. The former president was in Rabat on Tuesday, I think, sometime last week. He met with the Moroccan officials and announced his party's official recognition of Morocco's sovereignty over the Western Sahara. Now, the ANC is upset because Zuma used the South African flag when he was meeting with the Moroccan officials. The ANC says Zuma shouldn't have used SA symbols in a partisan activity like that is hosted by foreign powers. That's what the ANC says. So they believe that was misleading and part of an agenda of foreign interference. I mean, if the former president was there wearing MK party regalia or with the MK party, flag, if they have any, then that's fine. The ANC says, why use the South African flag like that? As if you are some state president or a representative of the South African government. Now, I don't know how much you know about Morocco, and maybe what I should do is bring in an analyst who can give us a little bit of context around what the genesis of this conflict currently unfolding, where the genesis is, right? Morocco considers Western Sahara an integral part of its kingdom, while you have the Polisario Front, which represents the Sahrawi people. They are seeking independence from Morocco. And this dates back to the 1970s when Spain left the Western Sahara as colonialism was falling. Morocco and Mauritania then divided the region among themselves. And conflict ensued. Mauritania withdrew. The Polisario Front has been fighting since then for self-determination and seeking to establish an independent state. That's why those that are opposing Morocco's territorial claims often consider Western Sahara to be the last colony in Africa, and the Polisario Front the sole legitimate representative of the Sahrawi people. So there are countries that have supported Morocco, right? Like you've got people like countries like the US, Spain, Israel, France. They've recognized Morocco's annexation of Western Sahara. In fact, when the US did it, they did it in return for Morocco normalizing ties with Israel. So these countries back Morocco's autonomy plan, and now Zuma has just joined them. I mean, Morocco has been occupying Western Sahara since 1975. It controls 2/3 of the territory, while the Polisario Front governs the remaining area. Back in 1991, both Morocco and the Polisario Front were seeking at solutions if we're going to get to a place where there's a self-determination for the Western Sahara. And they agreed to a United Nations brokered ceasefire in anticipation of a referendum on self-determination. And yet, Morocco has rejected holding a vote on self-determination that would include independence as an option. So that's what the issue has been. Now, I'm going to play you a clip of the former President Jacob Zuma speaking about this conflict. This is back in the day when he was still president of South Africa. Now, this is when he was hosting, and you must listen to what he says there. But at the time, he was hosting President Brahim Ghali of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, where he condemned Morocco as a colonial state and emphasized the need for the independence and respect of sovereignty of the SADR, calling for the United Nations to act on its resolutions. This was President Zuma back in the time when he was head of state.
Them for many years. We are still with them. We'll continue to be with them because we believe that every country must have its own self-determination, and we are therefore very clear that we should be calling upon the UN to implement its resolution.
So you can see there, he is declaring support for the Western Sahara. He was calling for the United Nations to ensure that the resolutions that it's had are actually respected and enforced. Since he has joined the MK party and he formed this organization, his positioning has clearly changed. Listen to what he has said now through the MK party's head of the presidency, Thabile Mdluli, who was there with him in Morocco, meeting with the Moroccan officials.
We recall that our great leader, former President Nelson Mandela, trained in Morocco, Oujda, in 1962 and received financial and military support that was extended to the liberation movement in South Africa and the continent. This also comes as a natural continuation of the historical meeting President Zuma had with His Majesty King Mohammed V in 2017 during the AU summit in Cote d'Ivoire. That meeting entrenched the new impetus to the bilateral relationship between our two countries, South Africa and Morocco. During this meeting between President Zuma and His Majesty, the two leaders agreed to find ways of ending the stalemate between the two countries and the relaunching of a new chapter of the bilateral relations, resulting in the exchange of ambassadors. The relationship between our two countries has a great potential for greatness. For that reason, the MK party has put forward a policy position aimed at bringing about practical solution to the long-standing debacle on the future of the Sahara region. The document released by Mkhondo Wesizwe is named a Strategic Partnership for African Unity, Economic Emancipation and Territorial Integrity. In this document, our party touched all the essential elements that will conduce a new impetus to the bilateral relations in order to achieve a mutual interest of our two nations while striving to achieve a model of African excellence. Looking at the geopolitics of the world and the agenda of balkanization aimed at weakening our continent, our party, Mkhondo Wesizwe party, has since its inception committed itself to preserving the sovereignty, the unity of African state.
That's what Thabile Mdluli says. In fact, when you look at the papers that they've released, you see their positioning as the MK party on the situation in Morocco. So that's why there are so many questions that are being asked now about why the former president has decided to go meet with Moroccan officials and, of course, seemingly agree on their autonomy plan, right? Why would the MK party adopt a policy positioning that supports the proposal put by the Kingdom of Morocco to grant the Western Sahara autonomy as opposed to outright independence? What has changed in the former president's views? When he was still president and he was in the ANC, he was against Morocco and their continued annexation of the Western Sahara. But that positioning has changed now. What do you think is behind that? And let's not forget what Floyd Shivambu had said. Remember, when he was leaving the MK party, he said that the MK party wanted to receive or was already receiving monies from Morocco in exchange for a position that would support its autonomy over the Western Sahara. What does that tell you about a politician like that who's able to flip and flop and change positions like that on foreign policy, positions that involve the suppression and the rights of other people for self-determination? But that is a position they championed for when they were president.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
Okay, so you're calling from the East End. What are your thoughts?
Yes, morning, Clement. I hope you had a good weekend.
Sure, I did.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, Clement, my thoughts on this are simply like, you need to see the story in context, right? So apparently, I recently read somewhere now that apparently during the apartheid days, ANC used to receive money from the Polisario Front, they used to get money. So when they then became the government, this is why they took this stance of like self-determination and everything, because they were actually directly being funded by these people, right? So we also need to look and say, is it in the best interest in terms of our country and where it is, in terms of the positioning of Africa, for us to be backing this Western Sahara agenda? And I'll tell you why, right? If you look at Morocco and how Morocco has developed a lot over the years, Morocco doesn't have democracy. Morocco has a king. And that king has been very decisive. Similar to like how in Singapore they had that one leader who was very decisive, took very important policy decisions to change society and advance and progress society. So, when you look at how Africa is now going, it's almost like there's this battle between should we take the democracy for development, or should we have that one leader who's very decisive, who can then be there to advance the country? So I think it's almost like it's a wider battle to do with that, where now MK is trying to say that if the Polisario Front is already aligned with the ANC, what's the point? Let's give people a different offering and align with the King of Morocco. Because the King of Morocco gives a very different perspective and an offering of how Africa could look like if Africa has a single leader who's there for many, many years and then, advances development. Versus having these democratic elections, which sometimes they're sabotaged by people and they're sabotaged by NGOs and foreign elements. So it's almost like I feel like Africa now, we're at such an interesting point in terms of where do we want to go in terms of our development as citizens, because we've had 30 years of ANC rule, right? And ANC's foreign policy, if you look at it, hasn't always been coherent, Clement. Let's be honest. It's always been very all over the show, and it's always sort of being very inconsistent with who are they bedfellows with. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. We are with America, but yet we're not with America. Right, so they're with America in certain aspects, but other aspects they deviate and they're not with America. So this almost like middle of the road foreign policy has also brought about a lot of confusion, and that's why you see now it's almost like I think it's coming to a head where the world is moving to a point where either you're with this person or you're not with this person. You can't be middle of the road.
Yeah, got it. Koketso in the Eastern. Thank you.
Good morning, Clemmy, and the good, wonderful team there. It is unfortunate that Jacob Zuma has spent the rest of his life, or most of his life, fighting for fairness, freedom, and all those things. Now, the problem with the former president is he is surrounded by wrong people who are using him. At his age, the man, I don't think he thinks properly. Thanks, William Pretoria.
Good morning, Clement. What Jacob Zuma is doing right now, he's just trying to piss off Ramaphosa as much as possible. You see the statement that was released, the MK party released at the weekend, effectively calling for the resignation of Cyril Ramaphosa. So the idea here is to frustrate his government as much as possible. All attempts have failed. Ever since that conference, that 2017 conference, they've essentially been just looking for a way to just usurp the government. We saw the July unrest. He's not happy with this government. He thought he was robbed. So this is just a way to, on what mandate, in what capacity is he going to Morocco? Prince, in Bedford View.
And he's allowed to go to Morocco as the MK party leader. And yes, he went there to represent the leadership of the MK party. But the way that briefing was set up was just weird. Like normally that setup is for when, there are, heads of states meeting. When you put up flags like that, it's normally like, that's a setup of when you've got a government hosting a leader or a representative of another government. And that's why the ANC says this is somehow also interference in foreign policy, and it's also quite misleading. So, the central issue here remains the right of the Sahrawi people to decide their own future through a referendum or other means. Morocco controls the majority of Western Sahara, including its population centers and economic resources. And let's not forget that Western Sahara is rich in phosphate deposits and has potential offshore oil reserves, which then makes the territory economically significant. And that's why you are going to have these external players as well. So what are your thoughts? Do you think this decision by Zuma in the MK party is a betrayal of South Africa's core values? Do you think Zuma now is effectively turning his back on the Sahrawi people's yearning for freedom? So some people believe that he's doing all of this for Moroccan money. What do you think? 011-883-0702. More of your calls and WhatsApps after the headlines.
Over the years, you've heard me ask wealth manager Warren Ingram the big questions. How do we invest wisely? How do we protect our family's future? All those conversations, that entire library of financial expertise is now available as a podcast. Straightforward advice to help you build your wealth on demand. Just search for Warren Ingram's Personal Finance wherever you get your podcasts.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
23 minutes before 10 o'clock. Stanley, you're in Randfontein. Welcome to the 702 open line. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Clement.
Sure.
I think there's a saying goes like, where the rule of law ends, anarchy begins. I think Zuma and the MK, they are out to undo most of the gains that we have achieved as a country. And the main aim or the main target here is Sahara. Now, you look at the way he presented himself, like a statesman, like a president of some sort. And you take that, Clement, to link it to what happened at KZN with the general.
Yes.
The same strategy to say this is, in actual fact, in their minds, this is the government in waiting. And they will do anything and everything to upset the government of the day. And these are the beginning, the signs of what's going to happen in the future. Zuma is bitter to the core. At that age, he's so bitter. So he will do anything and everything to discredit the government of the day.
Yeah, it's actually quite scary, Stanley, thinking about it. Here's some WhatsApp voice notes.
Hi, Clement. Anonymous here. It's simple. Zuma went to Morocco. He knows very well Morocco is close to America. Zuma wants to go to America, like the AfriForum and all that. So Zuma wants to be part of America, but through Morocco. Finish and clear. We must look at the politics of South Africa. Mark my words. In coming years or months, it will reveal itself. Thank you.
Good morning, Clement and the 702 listeners. The position on this one, my position on this one is that at the time, Jacob Zuma was the president of the ANC and the South African government as a president. But then those views, it was not his sole decision alone. He has to abide by the policies of the party and so forth. Now, because he has his own party, obviously the views will change. It's not like he's flip-flopping. He was representing the masses at the time. Right now, he represents Mkhonto Isizwe and the party as the official opposition as well. This is their stance and so forth. So let it be it. But yes, in terms of using the South African flag, that is problematic. But they have the right to do that as well.
Morning, Clement. It's Mandla in Buhle Park. You know, I think each and every political party thinks for themselves. When DA, PA, and others go to Israel, whose flag do they use? South African or their own flag? When ANC engage Russia or engage about the issue of Gaza, whose flag do they use? ANC or South African flag? Because remember, ANC is no longer a majority. They are no longer a government. But they are in a unity with other political parties with different policies. So MK is just doing the same. Thank you.
Morning, Clement. It's Sabo from Kruger's up here. I've just got a very short question. Isn't it that presidents or former presidents, they have this benefit of receiving the lifetime salary as the presidential benefits? And if that's the case, I think Zuma's benefits as the president or a former president should be withdrawn, or should be cancelled, or should be just called off, because he is now using the country's flag and name to do the direct opposite of what this government is standing for. So I think he should be stripped the rights of the presidential benefits immediately.
Yeah, so we have to check. I think the other listener makes a fair point about other political parties. Like, for instance, when the ANC was meeting with, was it meeting with Iranian officials or, but it met with Iran a couple of months ago, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Would they also put the South African flag behind them? I have not seen that, right? But if that is the case, we should also call that out. Imagine the DA arriving there in the US and they're speaking there as if they represent our government. I mean, the way the former president, if you check the video, at the press briefing after their bilateral negotiations, I mean, it just looks weird. He's speaking there as if he's the head of state. Behind him, a South African flag and a Moroccan flag. And he's wearing a suit. He's not wearing any MK colors. He's wearing a suit. He is presenting as if he is the head of state. It just looks so weird. And I think that is just so misleading on a number of levels. And equally so, if there are other political parties that have used a flag like that when they were discussing issues with other foreign governments or officials from those governments, that should also be called out, especially where it's not clearly stipulated that they are not representing the state. You don't want to mislead people like that. Somi, you're calling from Senton. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Somi. Go ahead.
Yes, it's two things. My take is that if he, like Shivani said, he has been offered money. That is very important to him. You give him money, he will do anything, Mr. Zuma. And secondly, he still sees himself as the president of the country. He never really got over empty out. That's all I have to say.
All right, Somi, in Senton, thank you for your call. She speaks about how Zuma is doing this for money. Here's some context. Remember what Floyd Shivambu said after he was fired as the Secretary General of the MK Party? He held a press briefing and he made this claim about the MK Party and Morocco.
The Moroccan embassy wanted to buy the position of MK to say that MK should support Morocco's oppression over Western Sahara. And then there are those closer to him who visited Morocco, were promised money, and then they came back and said, MK must agree with Morocco's oppression of Western Sahara. Then when he realizes that they won't understand this, then he called me into the meeting. Then said to the Moroccan ambassador and political secretary that we are not going to agree with you. If we are going to have engagements with the Kingdom of Morocco, we must talk to the SADR here and the Polisario Front, which is the liberation movement fighting for the liberation of Western Sahara. And then we agreed on that principled positions. I wrote a letter on the 27th of March to the Polisario Front to say that the president will engage with you before he engages with Morocco, because it's now 50 years since the oppression got to happen over Western Sahara by Morocco. And you saw what happened. Immediately we were suspended. What is that? Not suspended, that thing of redeployed. Then the Moroccan government issued a statement which is undersigned by Mkhonto we Sizwe to say that Mkhonto we Sizwe supports its oppression over Western Sahara. No meeting to discuss that. No national high command, no officials. Someone just says, and the people who did that, it's those who went to Morocco. Like, that is basically the whole thing. Like, there's no, and in the official record, in the minutes of the National High Command, is that President Zuma is going to mediate a discussion between Western Sahara Liberation Forces and Morocco to find a settlement. It has been going in for a very long time. But after, immediately we leave because they couldn't do that in our presence, obviously. They couldn't. Then they saw an opportunity that, yeah, now we're going to maybe press that jukebox or to sing for us.
So, did Floyd Shivambu have a point here? Is the MK party doing this in exchange for money? Did Morocco give money to the MK party in exchange for the party's stance in favor of Morocco's position on the Western Sahara dispute? Because parties also can't be receiving donations from foreign governments, right, except for training and development. So you've got to wonder, why are they doing this? And was there an exchange of money? And we've been checking, by the way, some of the meetings the ANC has had with other, like even when they met with the Iranians, we only see these ANC banners. You don't see the ANC putting a South African flag there. So what gives Zuma the authority and the right to do that and create this impression that I'm here as a former head of state of South Africa and we're negotiating with a foreign state? This is all bizarre. It's 13 minutes before 10.
Over the years, you've heard me ask Wealth Manager Warren Ingram the big questions. How do we invest wisely? How do we protect our family's future? All those conversations, that entire library of financial expertise is now available as a podcast. Straightforward advice to help you build your wealth on demand. Just search for Warren Ingram's Personal Finance wherever you get your podcasts.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
10 minutes before 10 o'clock, the Eswatini government, I don't know if you've been following up on this, for the Eswatini government has accepted individuals classified as violent criminals from the US as part of a third country deportation deal. This comes as their own countries refuse to accept the men. So there are this group of 5 men who are originally from Vietnam, Jamaica, Cuba, Yemen, Laos. Their own countries have refused to accept them. They've now been deported from the US to Eswatini. The US tried to send them back to their own countries. Their own country says no, because they are all convicted of serious offenses, including murder, aggravated assault, gang-related crimes, and child rape. So their own country said no. What did the US then do? The US then decided to go to Eswatini and say, take these people for us, and you can figure out what you do with them afterwards. Eswatini has now signed this agreement because who says no to Donald Trump? I spoke to the spokesperson of the Eswatini government so you can understand their rationale from their side on why they decided to accept these convicted criminals from the US. This is Thabile Mdluli, who is the government spokesperson for Eswatini. Thabile, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, tell us about this agreement that Eswatini has had with the US. What does it entail?
It's basically a high-level agreement that began with negotiations months ago. Basically, the agreement is that they will send some of their third country nationals to the Kingdom of Eswatini, but they will be here for us to facilitate repatriation back to their countries of origin.
Okay, and what's in it for you as Eswatini? Why did you sign this kind of agreement?
The U.S. and Eswatini has had very fruitful bilateral relations, spanning almost 6 decades now. So it's always been a kind of agreement where there is mutual benefits for each country. So there is no specific benefit because of this agreement now. It's just a continuation of what we already were doing for 6 decades.
Okay, but this is the first time that you are taking some immigrants that they've arrested for them.
Yes, it's the first time, and we are hoping that there won't be any other reason to do that again in future. But if there would be, we'd still go back and sit down with the U.S. and discuss the conditions and the terms of doing that kind of agreement.
What reasons did the U.S. give you guys for wanting to bring these immigrants to your country?
Unfortunately, some of the information in that agreement is what you can term classified information. So I'm not allowed to actually go to the specifics of the agreement in terms of what the reasons were and everything related to that.
Okay, I get that, but I'm just asking, did the US say our prisons are overpopulated? We want you to hold on to these people. So I'm not asking about what the charges the people were facing. I'm just asking, what were their reasons? I mean, I would imagine they didn't just say take these people without giving you reasons.
I'm sure the reasons were there. Like I said, the negotiations were high level. I was also not part of those negotiations. So I'm not really privy to the specific reasons why we had to do that agreement with the US.
So how do you explain it then to the people of Eswatini? Because as the people, as a government, you have to explain to them, this is a decision we've taken. So what's the explanation?
For the Kingdom of Eswatini, I think the concern really has been on their safety. But we have always been a country that safeguards the safety of its people. And we have very watertight security systems. So ours, we have just explained that there is no reason to fear, no reason to be afraid. We will ensure that we continue to make sure that these prisoners are kept in a safe place and in isolation so that there is no chance of them to actually come up and be a danger to the nation.
Do you have capacity for these prisoners? Do you not have overpopulated prisons?
No, we don't have overpopulated prisons at the moment. We do have the capacity to handle the 5 that are here. Perhaps the problem would come if they wanted to bring more, but for now we are fine in terms of capacity.
And what happens if the countries that they're supposed to be deported them don't want to take them back?
I guess, again, we'd have to go back to the table with the U.S., sit down and strategize on the way forward. Because remember, U.S. and Eswatini nowadays also other third parties. We will continue with, we come to that point that we've just discussed.
This agreement that's made.
I'm sure those areas considered by the
how are you being affected by the tariff?
%, and it's not that, it's a reciprocal tariff. We've always been having a 10% tariff with the U.S.
Oh, so based on the new tariffs that Trump has announced, he hasn't increased any in as far as Eswatini is concerned?
No, it's still the 10%.
Okay, but there are some people in Eswatini who have been concerned that we're being treated here as dumping ground. And I know, as you say, there are some questions that you're unable to answer, except to, of course, promise the people of Eswatini that they're going to be safe. How's the mood on the ground? Because there are some people that seemingly are still not satisfied with your explanation. Can you confidently say that the people in Eswatini now understand your position, even though you are unable to answer some of the questions?
Look, the panic was justified. I mean, it's not every day that you receive criminals from other countries to come to your country. But we believe after almost a week of this having happened, people are starting to calm down now. We cannot say for sure that everyone is satisfied as yet, but we say that the panic is dying down a bit.
Oh, yeah. And then when do you expect to deport them to their home countries?
It's quite difficult at this point to say exactly when, but we can say that the negotiations or the engagements between the parties concerned have already begun.
Okay. Thabile Mdluli, thank you so much for speaking to us. So that is Thabile, who speaks on behalf of the Eswatini government. Apologies there for the glitch in this clip. We recorded the conversation just before we went live on the show. I want to quickly bring in Advocate Clement Manyathela, who's a researcher at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs at UNISA. Advocate Manyathela, just quickly on Eswatini, why did they take this deal? There's nothing in it for Eswatini, at least from what the government spokesperson says. They don't even know what they would do if the countries they try to deport these criminals to are saying, no, we don't want them. So it's almost like they did it because they were scared of Donald Trump. How do you read it?
Refreshing morning, Clement. Indeed, Clement, I think you see your last question that you raised, I think that was a trigger, even if she was very diplomatic or economical with the truth. For me, what I have read, it is that in principle, Eswatini had a choice, not to accept this man. Considering this global traffic of tariffs that is going on and this cut and increase of aid, so one can say that it's either political and economic pressure points that push their kingdom to bow to the American bullying tactics. For me, it is that looking at also the safe deportation. Remember even the visit of 5 African countries that were there, or Senegal, or Gabon, Liberia, they were promised the same. Nigeria refused this also, remember? And this also brings us to the case that we have dealt with last year, Clement, if you recall, of Rwanda and the British, of bringing immigrants. But this one is different because you are talking about hardcore convicts.
They are.
And for us, I mean, we should be worried. If they jump to Barberton, Umkhonto, Pongola, if they can escape. So for us, I think the official was very economical with the truth.
I mean, especially because Eswatini has no watertight security system, so we must be concerned ourselves.
No, we must lament, but like I said to you, this is a pressure that comes from the bullying tactic coming from the U.S., and that will, I mean, the SADC must come out clear, Clement. How do we deal with such, Because SADC, I mean, Eswatini, it is the member of SADC.
Yeah, just quickly then, Advocate Manyathela, the move by Jacob Zuma in Morocco, what does that mean? Because when he was president, he took a different position, but now his party seems to be supporting Morocco's plan in as far as sovereignty of Western Sahara is concerned.
Clement, I know time it's not there, but what a diplomatic blunder also from the head of state. But I don't know, Clement, have you checked the document of MK, the 17-page document of what they called a strategic partnership for African unity, economic emancipation, and territorial integrity on Morocco? Very skewed. When you read that document, for me, is that they could not capture the history of where does the occupation of Morocco begins. Because me and you have dealt with the Berlin Conference effects, remember, on this show. And Western Sahara was the product of the Berlin Conference divide and rule. And that's how Morocco find itself occupying Western Sahara for more than 50 years. Despite that, in 1991, there was UN referendum around that. And I think that is a political blunder. But read that document, and for me, it will be great if, Clement, we can have a debate with the MK, international relations, their researchers to say, but when they put this document, where they...
Travel isn't just about destinations. It's about the people you meet, the cultures you immerse yourself in, the stories you carry home. I'm Relebogile Mabocha, and on my travel feature, I take you on a journey beyond the guidebook. Each week, I connect with fellow travelers, insiders, and storytellers to bring you the heart of every place, whether it's a hidden gem right here in South Africa or a dream destination abroad. Join me as we travel through conversations, memories, and inspiration. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Not aware of the facts that have been there before, and as we have said before, the ANC has been having a clear stance. Every January 8 statement, ANC will always talk about Western Sahara. We know very well. But many African countries, the AU, have been very clear about Morocco's stance. Even there was a time Morocco ambassador was chased out of the AU.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, Advocate Clement Manyathela, we're out of time, but thank you so much. I think we should dedicate some time for that debate with the MK party. We have requested them for an interview. They were not available to join us today, but we'll keep pushing for the rest of the week.